Today's walk around a windy Sydney Harbour is brought to you by organic Australian butter. Let me explain. These feet, or they're not quite boots, they're made for walking. But just lately, I haven't been walking too well, and that's because I've got this advancing neurological problem. Jeez, it's windy here, isn't it, eh? And the reason I've got this advancing neurological problem that stops me from walking normally is because I've been a contaminated blood victim since a kid. And I've been fighting the Australian public health establishment for decades, trying to get answers for victims of Australia's deadliest medical scandal. So this thing, right, it causes me, I've got bone marrow failure, a heart condition, okay, and I've still got the hepatitis C virus. So what my life is like is I get migraines every single day, and I get itchy skin from top to bottom. I get bone aches, muscle aches, and I vomit, okay, several times a day. So weight loss has been a major issue, okay. So what happened was I was finished basically, and then I basically was introduced to medicinal cannabis, and it's made the difference. It stops my skin from itching. It stops me from feeling nauseous, and it helps me walk and go to the toilet and all that kind of thing. But now what's been happening just lately in Australia, with lockdowns and all the problems with public health, getting medicinal cannabis has been incredibly hard. For pharmacists that dispense the stuff, the process of putting the prescriptions in is much more difficult than it is for regular pharmaceutical prescriptions, okay? It's a much more involved process. So many pharmacies around Australia just simply don't want to deal in it, right? And you're not allowed by law to send my prescription, the actual cannabis flower, through the post. So what's happened is the pharmacy that handled my prescription has closed, okay? And that's a problem because I stopped driving because of this condition, right? So as a result, I've been left bedbound without supply of my medicinal cannabis. Okay, and it got to a head yesterday where I literally didn't have anything that was strong enough to get my body to work, and I was having problems going to the toilet, having problems doing anything. Okay, so I was really worried because I thought I was going to have fits in the middle of the night, and this is what happens to me as well. Okay, I have that problem as well, and it's terrible. You really don't know if you're going to survive when you have these feelings. So I've just got to tell you the positive, happy side to this story, right? The one involving organic Australian butter. Okay, well, I've never made what they call canna butter, or butter made using cannabis before, up until the first time was about 4 months ago. So I can't say that I particularly enjoyed eating it. It's probably why I didn't eat a block of it. So last night, in desperation, because I was very ill, I was just looking through my fridge, I think, just looking for anything there that could be helpful. And what do you know? I found this bit of block canna butter that I'd forgotten about. So I got some slices of bread out, and it was about 11:30 at night. And I didn't really want to eat those slices of bread, but I put this canna butter in a sandwich and I forced it down. As again, I can't say as I particularly enjoyed the butter, although it was Australian organic butter, if that makes a difference to anyone. But it was the taste of this cannabis that was in it. It wasn't particularly nice. So I went to bed and didn't know what to expect. Well, I'll tell you what, this walk today, isn't that amazing? I'm able to use my legs. I'm not vomiting. And I was able to go on this walk. It's just incredible. Okay, it is incredible, and next year a neurologist is going to test me, and we're going to take a good look at all of this, and we're going to do it on camera. Unfortunately, I'll have to also go without my medicine, so I'll become quite ill, but I'm going to do that to show people what happens and what the power of what this medicine can do, right? Now, we didn't know this. Contaminated blood victims often didn't know about the power of cannabis in the 1980s. But, you know, there were one or two people that knew, and they'd be telling me about it years ago. And I'm sorry to say, I didn't believe them. I thought they were, were wacky, a bit like how everyone thinks I am today, probably. Well, look, passing some lovely flowers here. It'd be a pity not to show you them. So what happened was I was aware that a lot of contaminated blood victims, people with HIV and Hep C around the world, had been using cannabis. People were telling me, and others have been using it for a lot longer than I have. We've got people in our group who've actually, get this, they've been fighting cancer with it, and they've been extending their lives. My life has been extended by it. And I think if you know me, you'll know that through that life extension that came about through the kind support of volunteers in our group, they've basically kept me alive. They're beautiful people. And with that in return, what I've done is I've helped bring up Australia's deadliest medical scandal again in an effort to try and help myself and others who've been caught up in this terrible thing. There's tens of thousands of us infected and affected, so we really need to do something. But yeah, this walk around the sort of inner city side of Sydney Harbour is brought to you by cannabis butter. I'm not feeling nauseous. I actually had a 7-hour sleep. A lot of people in our group, they can't manage more than an hour of sleep every 24 hours because of these autoimmune conditions that very often they've been left with, or because of the virus they've been left with as a result of contaminated blood, or because of the cancer that they're struggling with now. So it's no joke that this medicinal cannabis has done really good work for some of our group. Now there's other people in the group who they don't particularly want it to be their choice because they prefer another course of action, and we really respect you. But what we really want to do is talk to people more about what can we do to make it easier for people with chronic conditions like us to actually get the most from our medicine. Medicinal cannabis is very expensive, and oftentimes, it's very difficult for pharmacies to prescribe it. How can we make it easier? How can we make it easier for people like myself who get so much benefit? I'm able to walk today. If I didn't have that cannabis butter last night, I was going to be very worried. I would imagine I wouldn't have slept, probably had a fit or so. It would have been hell on earth. I'd be vomiting today. I'd be bedbound. Okay, I'd be sick probably all week next week. But because I ate that butter, here I am. It's incredible. And so I'm very ambitious for other people in my group who for whatever reasons, can't access it or feel as though it could get them in trouble. Let me explain. In Australia, it's illegal to drive with any amount of cannabis in your system. So it's quite ridiculous because an awful lot of medicinal cannabis patients are smart enough to know that you probably wouldn't go driving if you felt, if you felt in any way that your abilities were compromised, and you'd wait some hours. And in fact, I think there was a study in Canada that showed that it's more than fine for a medicinal cannabis patient to drive 4 or 5 hours after having ingested this cannabis. Oh, there's my chap again. This is this guy who, whenever I walk past, even though he's got a multi-million-dollar home, he tells me to keep my voice down. Australia's been locked down for 2 years. You've got people like that with million-dollar homes on the harbour, and they tell you keep your voice down. You're talking too loud, or he tells me to put a mask on, or crazy, eh? This is what the effect of public health has had. These public health tyrants have had on Sydney, a formerly freedom-loving city, right? And you could be talking or not wearing a mask before this mask order. That guy back there, when I was going for a walk, he actually stopped me to say about I wasn't wearing a mask, and he wasn't wearing a mask, but it was okay for him because he was standing behind his little fence. How ridiculous. What does any of this have to do with catching a virus? Honestly, this virus is hundreds of times less deadly than the COVID virus, and yet we're locked down, and we've got people playing sort of health vigilantes, telling me to keep my voice down or asking me why it is I don't have a mask. How many times that's happened to me. Anyway, this is just another walk sponsored by cannabis butter, and I just think it's absolutely marvellous. We were told by the Australian government and others that for decades that cannabis was just such a dangerous and terrible thing, and now we know that used in the right way, it can accommodate people like me being able to walk and live their lives again and actually be useful again. I mean, what did I do with my medicinal cannabis? Oh, I helped start up Infected Blood Australia and start campaigning for victims of Australia's deadliest medical scandal. I didn't go and rob banks or embezzle anybody or steal taxpayers' money or knowingly harm patients en masse. So I think that's a pretty good result. You know, it's hardly reefer madness. Yeah. So what I would like to do is, being very ambitious for other people in my group, other contaminated blood victims, I'd like to talk to anyone out there who feels like me that patients are being denied their full potential from their healthcare. Why can't fully grown professionals who've provided millions in taxes for the government, people in our group, we've got some really, really capable people in our group, why can't they have this medicine properly regulated if it will put them back to being useful, doing the things they want to do, being a better parent for their families, or going back to work, or traveling again? You know, there are so many things that people who are disabled and incapacitated right now might be able to do again if we could make this medicine happen, okay? So I'm going to keep on fighting. Infected Blood Australia, this campaign group, might have some new faces soon. You know, we might have some people with better qualifications than me in the legal sense, so to speak. I don't know if Australia's Health Minister Greg Hunt would be very happy to hear that, but for me, having been campaigning now for almost 30 years, I've literally been fighting tainted blood for 33 years or something. Bloody hell, it's a long time anyway. But for me, the future will soon be about healing, because this condition and my situation is degenerative, and I don't really want to be arguing with Australia's public health establishment for another decade, having spent bloody several decades already fighting for basic common sense. If there's anything I'll be fighting for from here on in soon, it will be, once we get our inquiry and get help for Australia's long-suffering haemophiliacs and infected blood victims, I think it'll be about healing. Very important thing for me. Not knocking activists, because I've obviously got a lot of empathy having been one, but I think, you know, it's easier to be critical than it is perhaps to be positive sometimes, and I'd like to be positive. I'd like to be positive about healing. Okay, I would like to see, being very ambitious of people in our group, I'd like to see them be able to have a little bit more life back. That life that was taken away or diminished through fault of their own, being knowingly harmed by contaminated blood transfusion. And I say knowingly harmed because they were. Did you know that authorities and doctors knew that the blood supply was contaminated? They did, and they didn't even warn patients. It's just outrageous. Those patients, had they been warned, they would have delayed their surgery, right? They're elective surgery patients, many of them. Or others were patients that didn't need the blood to survive, and they went ahead because they were told it was safe. We've got them in our group, and they're now people struggling with cancer. Outrageous. So, yeah, I'd like to talk to you. My name's Charles Mackenzie. Can you help us? Can you help us campaign for other people like us with chronic conditions to help us access the best for our healthcare going forward, with less obstructions, okay, less things that keep us bedbound? If we could be active, can you help us become active again? Can you help us with things like medicinal cannabis? Okay, I'd love to hear from you. Charles Mackenzie. I hope you enjoyed this almost incident-free walk around Sydney Harbour that was sponsored by medicinal cannabis. No, when I say sponsored, I mean by the power of it, not by the finances of it. We haven't collected any money. No one's offered any money. I don't think they ever would. But yeah, you get the idea. I'm feeling very happy here on this Saturday, and see you later.